Good afternoon, everyone. I, Dr. Uzma, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, Integral University, on behalf of the entire Faculty of Law, I warmly welcome you in 30 days interdisciplinary faculty development program on emerging trends in administration of criminal justice system and forensic science. Today we begin our technical session as per the third module, third technical session on the topic of the enemy and the culture deviance theory with today's resource person, Dr. Avekta Verma ma'am. Ma'am is a distinguished associate professor at Law Center 1, University of Delhi, renowned for her profound knowledge and extensive experience in the field of law. With a career spanning nearly 2 decades, ma'am has established herself as a prominent figure in legal academia, imparting her expertise to countless students and scholars. Ma'am's academic journey commenced with her pursuit of a Bachelor of Law, which she successfully earned at Himachal Pradesh University. Building upon this foundation, she further enriched her legal acumen by completing a Master of Laws and achieving the pinnacle of academic excellence with a Doctor of Philosophy. Currently, ma'am holds the esteemed position of Associate Professor at Law Center 1, University of Delhi. Her commitment to legal education is evident in her diverse teaching portfolio, which includes criminal law, criminology, and penology, law of torts, and disaster management. Her pedagogical approach is marked by dedication to nurturing the intellectual growth of her students. In recognition of her outstanding contribution to the field of law, ma'am became a life member of the Institute of Constitutional and Parliamentary Studies in 2012. This affiliation underscores her commitment to the principle and practices that underpin constitutional grievance and parliamentary procedures. We are honored to have you with us, ma'am. Kindly enlighten us with your knowledge. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Usma, and thank you for the warm welcome. And are you able to hear me? Am I
Yes, ma'am.
audible? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And at the outset, I would also like to congratulate Integral University for holding this FTP in criminology. So, because when I used to think of doing an FTP, so it used to be always in my mind that I want to do it in the area of criminology, but there was no FDP available in criminology in those times. So I really congratulate you. You have filled that gap. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this program. I would like to share my presentation. So just give me a minute. So can you just guide me how I can do it on this platform? If I want to share the PPT. So I have to press on the present icon.
Ma'am, please share your PPT with
Okay,
on
so
your
how to
part.
do it? There is this present icon. So I have pressed on this and it talks about share screen.
Yes, ma'am. Present icon, ma'am. You can press present icon.
Okay, and it comes share screen.
Yes, ma'am.
So Okay, fine. So, are you able to see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. The topic for my presentation is the Anomie and the cultural deviance theories of criminology. And before I come directly to the topic, I would just like to give you a little background to this particular topic. When we think of crime, we do come across different theoretical perspectives which do try to explain about why certain people commit crime. There are different theories which explain criminal behavior. And starting from the pre classical to classical school, many other theories are in vogue now. And when we start from the pre classical or classical school, you must be knowing that they talked about crime being a rational choice. The individual has free will and freely chooses rationally by weighing the cost and benefits, the criminal activity. Thereafter, after the classical school, there came the positive school of thought or positive perspective, which was totally different from the positive school. And what this, sorry, the classical school, and what this positive perspective stated was that individual has no free will, no choice, right? And it is something because of factors which are not within the control of the individual that that deviant behavior happens. So low intelligence, certain you can say biological factors, they are the ones because of which the crime happens. So on and so forth. There were psychological theories and then the sociological theories. And when we talk about anomie, it or theories of anomie, they are a part of sociological theories, right? So let me show you by way of PPT. Somehow I'm not able to move it. So okay. So okay, I'm not somehow able to move the PPT. So we'll continue with the lecture. So now, when we talk of anomie, right? So anomie, the theories of anomie, they are part of the sociological theories only, right? And and this particular concept of anomie, if we want to look at the meaning of anomie, right, this is a particular concept which was given by, or the term which was used by Emile Durkheim, right? And according to him, it means a condition of normlessness, fine, or where there is lawlessness in society. Now, when he gave this particular theory, he tried to explain it in a very beautiful manner. And how did he explain it? He stated that basically societies, they transition from simpler societies to more complex societies, right? And that means when it is a simple society, it is called a mechanical society. And what this simple society is composed of? Here, the members of the society, they basically share similar values and norms, right? There is not much division of labor in the society. They lead simple lives, and it is little division of labor only which is existing in such societies. And what happens is that this society is self sufficient, right? And as they share the similar values and norms, so there is a solidarity in this society which is called the mechanical solidarity. So what is the function of the law in such society? The function of law in such societies is to maintain uniformity, right? So anybody who violates the law is punished. Then from these simple societies, there is a progression towards more complex societies because of technological advancement, social growth, changes, etc. And so these mechanical societies now, they have much more division of labor as compared to the simple societies. Now, division of labor is there to the extent that roles are very specific and specialized in such societies. Now, here, once the roles are specialized, there is a lot of interdependence also amongst the members of the society, to the extent that one can find that there is a person who is researching in a laboratory, right? And he's researching in a particular area. For example, the person is looking at animals or insects. So in that area also maybe looking at the working of a particular organs of that particular animal. And then there is another person who is given the role of maintaining cleanliness in the university premises. So now these two people, they are working in their different fields. They do not have direct relations with each other. Fine. So they are, but there is a lot of still interdependence, right? But there is no direct connection between the two. So now here in such a society, that is which is called organic society, there is division of labor, but there is no connection between different peoples who form different groups in the society, and they do not have shared value system or norms at times. So the law's function in such a society is to regulate their interactions, right? So how they will be interacting with each other, how the balance will be maintained that between different groups, that is the role which the law plays in such a society. Now, change is quite natural and inevitable from mechanical to organic society. The change happens, but then what Durkheim says is that when this change happens suddenly, there is a sudden change, then what happens is that the values and norms, they weaken, and the regulation over the people's activities is not that effective, right, in case of rapid changes. So because of that reason, what happens is that anomie results. There is more deviant conduct which is displayed by the people. And why this happens? Because according to Durkheim, people's desires, they are limitless. And it is the society, right? And it is the norms, the values, the laws which regulate these desires of an individual. Now, when there is a sudden transition, then what happens is that there is no regulation as the norms weaken, right? So there is nothing which is able to place a limit on the desires or behavior of the people. And according to Durkheim, during the times of depression, when the economy is going down, or even during the times when there is sudden prosperity, right? During both transition periods, the norms basically, they weaken, because older norms, they are getting weak, and the new norms, they take time to set in the society. So in this transition period, normlessness, you can say, or state of lawlessness or anomie, that happens, which make individuals prone to criminal activities, and so the crime rises during this transition period. So this is one aspect of anomie which Durkheim had stated basically, and this particular concept of anomie then was later on sorry then was later on relied on by Robert Merton, who was an American sociologist, to explain the anomic condition in American society. But he, in a way, one can say, he modified this particular approach which Durkheim had taken. In Durkheim's concept of anomie, it is the rapid social change. It is during those periods when desires of individuals, they cannot be regulated, their behavior cannot be regulated, that anomie results. But according to Robert Merton, when we look at his concept of anomie, he says that desires of an individual, they may be limitless, right? So he is looking he's looking at it in a way where he says that it is the culture of the society, and he's looking at American culture here in particular. He says that it is the society which creates the cultural goals, and it is also the society which tells that what are the means to achieve those cultural goals, how to attain those cultural goals. So he says in a healthy society, cultural goals are there, which are there for an individual to aspire for. But then the society also talks about the means by which those cultural goals can be attained. Now he says in healthy society, what happens is that cultural goals are to be attained by the established means, that is working hard, working honestly, and that's how the individual will be attaining the goals which are prescribed. But then he says that when a society fails to emphasize on the means, that it is with hard work that you have to achieve those cultural goals, right? It does not emphasize so much on those aspects. So what it does is that what the society does is that it gives preeminence, importance, much importance to the cultural goals, and does not give the same importance to the means which are adopted by an individual to achieve those cultural goals. It is there and then that the problem results. So when there is a mismatch between the two. And he says in an American society, he gives an example that the goal which everybody is made to aspire to is acquisition of wealth, right? The American dream. So it is that you have to achieve it at any cost, because at times there is no effort made to reward an individual who is doing it by the game, by the rules of the game, who is adopting the means which are prescribed for reaching those goals, realizing those goals. So he says it's very important that means are also emphasized. But once in a society they are not emphasized, it's not hard work, but it may be by cheating, right, or by unfair means that the goals are reached or realized by an individual. If that is not condemned, but recognition is given to that, so then he says that in this kind of a society, this is an unhealthy society, the anomie results, because there is a cultural goal, and an individual, because of one's social status, may not be able to realize that cultural goal. And he gives an example that people uh, who are having a low socioeconomic status, right? They have a cultural goal in the sense that they have to become rich, they have to acquire wealth, and how to do it? By working hard, by getting a good education. But this opportunity to have a good education, they may be going to school, but then the educational level is not that good, the skill training is not that good, so the means to realize those goals, they are not available. So though they are wanting to participate in realizing the goals which have been set by the society, there results a strain, a frustration when they are not able to realize it by the fair means, right? Or by the means which will make it legitimate, right, to reach the prescribed goal. So, because those means are not there, so the strain is there, but the individual wants to be rich, aspires to achieve that goal, so may deviate from the prescribed means, may adopt a deviant behavior to realize those goals. So, this is called a strain theory, also, the Robert Merton's approach, and it is also called a means and end theory because there is a gap, right? So the low people who belong to the low socioeconomic class, who are living on the margins, they realize it very late that the means to reach the goal are not available, right? So this frustration is something which at times may make them to adopt other means, basically. Now the question rises that it is not that all people, after getting frustrated, will be adopting this kind of an approach. The strain is felt by almost everyone who will be aspiring to reach that cultural goal. So, the question which was raised with respect to the Merton's theory was that it is not that all people who even belong to the poor backgrounds and who do not have opportunities to realize those goals, that they all become deviant. It doesn't happen like that. So, to this, Merton had given uh, in his theory that there are adaptations to the strain that people do. And he talked about five kind of adaptations which people do when they are faced with this kind of a strain. And what are those adaptations which people do in such a scenario? It is, for example, one way to adapt to the strain is conformity. Now, conformity is when people, they accept the goal and they also accept the means, right? The majority of the people in the society, they belong to this. So accepting the goal means to trying to strive for success and reach good positions, bettering one's life. And they try to do it by getting skill training, education, working hard. So they are conforming. So they are the conformists. That is one way of adapting to the strain. Another way of adapting to the strain, according to Robert Merton, it is ritualism, right? So now in ritualism, what people do is that they do not pursue the goal, right? That is of material success, but they do adopt the means. So they are satisfied. These are the people who are satisfied in whatever they are doing. They do not desire or wish to go up the ladder, right? So they are happy with their life. So they are the most satisfied people, actually. So that is basically ritualism. Then another kind of adaptation which Robert Merton talked about was that is innovation, right? And in this innovation, what happens is that people, they accept the goal, but they do not accept the means. When they do not accept the means, they may took to deviant means, right? They may result deviations, different means they may adopt, which may not be legitimate, right? So crime will result. So if when we look at property-related crimes like bank robberies, or we look at drug dealers, or you can say car thieves, auto thieves, etc. They do fall in this particular category. They also want wealth, but then the means are something which they have devised on their own. But then innovators need not always be criminal. They may at times be social entrepreneurs. For example, Google, right, for the internet when this was being designed. So that is something which is innovation, right? So when a young athlete also gets a multi-billion dollar contract, so the means are not that going to school, getting educated, and that's how the goal of getting rich or creating wealth, that is not achieved in this way but in a different manner. So the innovation can be positive also at times. So this is another way of adopting. Then another way of adopting is that of retreatism. Retreatism is when a person rejects the goals as well as rejects the means also. Does not adopt either the goal or the means. Both of them are not accepted by the person. Now, in this category may come people who become religious, who may you can say abandon the society, start living with you can say the cults, or you can say religious associations, uh, or you can say it may be certain people who, because of their uh, own philosophy of life, they may become monks, or they may go to isolated spots to live in. So they will be included in this. Or maybe some people, they become drug addicts, right? So all those who withdraw from the society, they will be coming in this category of retreatism. And one example is that of Una Bomber, where this person, uh, Ted Kazniaki, who was a university professor in University of California, Berkeley. So now he was having a you can say good, you can say prospects, and he retreated himself to live in an isolated spot, in an isolated cabin in Montana. He withdrew from the society, right? So that way he retreated, because he left all those perks associated with his position in the university. He started living in isolation, right? Because he was a nature lover also. So he wanted to live in the midst of nature. So he started living in an isolated cabin, basically. So that way he withdrew from society. So it's an example of retreatism. Another way of adapting is that of rebellion. Now, in case of rebellion, what happens is that these people who are the rebels, they want to replace the goals and the means with new goals and means, right? So rebels are people who want a new system in place. So we can say that all are, you can say, freedom fighters. They were the rebels. So the great leaders, whether it be Mahatma Gandhi, right, or whether it be Nelson Mandela, so they are the rebels. They wanted a new system in place, basically. So they are the people who bring in the change, right? So they want to substitute the goals, existing goals and means with the new ones. So these are the different ways, that is conformity, ritualism, retreatism, rebellion, innovation, in which the people may adapt to the existing strain. Fine. So that was one of the ways in which Robert Merton, he tried to explain as to why, when he's saying that this strain, when it is created, it leads to crime in the, you can say, in the slum areas, in the low socioeconomic groups, and why it's not all people belonging to these areas or groups that they become criminals, because they try to adopt to strain in their own way. Now, this theory of anomie, which was given by Durkheim and was adopted by Robert Merton, it had a great impact on the policies of the day, in the sense that uh, the criminal law policies were made in a way in US whereby reform measures, in the sense of improving opportunities for people living in these areas, they were initiated. Like good education should be given to the young people. Uh, the opportunities for recreation, they should also be provided. Poverty alleviation programs, they were also invoked. Right. We also see in India that different organizations, departments, even police personnels, they also look at empowering the youth. Different schemes are initiated whereby uh, you can say that they can be engaged in positive activities. Now, it's not simply that the anomie, the theory of anomie, given by Robert Merton, that it explained all the aspects. It could not explain as to the age-related differences which were there existing in anomie, right? Or it could not explain other aspects also as to how you can say intelligence of a person, personality of the person, athletic ability of the person. That is also something which at times has an impact on whether a person will be able to realize the goals or not. So simply stating that the person did not have the mean in terms of the kind of facilities being provided, that is not always true. But how these factors also hinder in achieving the goals, they were not elaborated upon by Merton. And he had also not elaborated upon that it's not that all people share all kind of goals or same goals or values, right? So no elaboration on that aspect was also done. But yes, this theory of anomie, it did explain how crime it did explain the official crime figures, which showed that it is the that the involvement of poor people in the crime, it's very high. Why from certain areas it's more that representation in crime, it is more, right? So some aspects of criminality were definitely explained by this theory of anomie, and a modified version of this theory of anomie we can find in the institutional anomie theory, which was given by Stephen Mesner and Richard Rosenfeld. And what they stated in institutional anomie theory was that they were saying that antisocial behavior is a function of cultural and institutional influences in American society. Right? How it is a function of cultural and institutional influences in American society? Because they said American dream is something which is to be pursued by everyone in the American society. It is something which has become culturally accepted. That means everybody need to aspire for becoming wealthy and successful. So now this particular cultural goal at the institutional level, what happens is that it it dominates all the institutions. All the institutions means, for example, like schools, families, etc. Right? And this when this cultural goal dominates the institutions in a society, it weakens the informal social controls which is exerted by family or religious institutions or school. How this happens is that a child is going to school for getting a good education. But then, because of this cultural goal which dominates the institutions, the schools are evaluated not for imparting knowledge, but for their ability to train students to get a high paying job. So, the end of education also becomes getting a good job and earning money, right? And the social conditions also basically reinforce these aspects only, right? So different institutions also. So now in this particular kind of setup, because because a person's worth is evaluated in terms of worth. Worth is evaluated in terms of the wealth a person will be acquiring. So this this is something which creates a deviant kind of a behavior, right? So crime rates, they may increase even in a healthy economy, right? In a prosperous economy, because people are encouraged to have financial success by any means possible, right? So whether it's schools, whether it's families, because in the neighborhood also, how the person is appreciated is not simply the kind or level of education a person has, but how much wealth a person has acquired. So it is not the means which are looked at as to how that wealth was acquired. So modern applications of this theory of anomie can be found in institutional anomie theory, or there are other theories also like relative deprivation theory, right, which talks about how a person may accept the goals, but is social conditions uh, do not you can say help that person in realizing those goals, right? And because of that, the deprivation is felt by the person, right? And so deviant means are also at times adopted. Then another theory which I had to deal with you in this today's presentation is the cultural deviance theory. Fine. And this cultural deviance theory also tries to explain the existence of crime in the society by way of explaining the stress or the strain, right? It also takes help of the theory of anomie in a way that it tries to explain the stress or strain which is uh, uh, which is experienced by a person who belongs to a particular minority group, right? Or belong to a particular racial group, right? Because there are different groups which are there in the society, and this person experiences the strain because the conduct norms of that particular group. Conduct norms are the rules which govern the day to day living conditions of these groups, right? So these minority groups, they may have their own culture, they may have their own way of living, but then their values and norms are different from the dominant culture. And according to cultural deviance theory, the criminal law, it represents the values and norms of the dominant group, the dominant culture, right? So it's not always that a person deliberately wants to violate the criminal law, right? This person actually belongs to a minority group, right? Which has, it may be ethnic minority, right? It may be racial minority, it may be a different kind of a minority. So they have their own culture, and even when they act according to their culture, when they are doing so, they unknowingly end up violating the criminal law. For example, if suppose a person's culture, for example, we see in tribal societies, consumption of liquor is a normal activity. But suppose a person from this culture comes to the city where there is a prohibition law. So, if that person is consuming alcohol, it will result in violation of law, which the person doesn't understand. That I was merely following the norms and the values, the traditions of my own culture, right, which comes in clash with the dominant culture. So, this culture conflict occurs, right? So this concept was given by Thorsten Selin. So according to him, this culture conflict occurs when the rules expressed in the criminal law They clash with the demands of group conduct norms, right? Group conduct norms, that means those minorities, the norms which they are following, the norms of those minorities, right? So another example can be, for example, when Indians, they migrate to other countries, they take citizenship of other countries, or they are just merely visiting those countries. A person may have gone from a village in India to that country. So it's quite normal in India to scold a child, to discipline a child. Scolding or little bit corporal punishment is quite acceptable, right? But then they come into clash with the dominant values in other countries, especially European countries and all, where talking rudely to a child, corporal punishment, etc., are criminal in nature. So there is a cultural conflict, right? So these kind of things do happen. Then also, in case of cultural deviance theory, we have an important concept of focal concerns given by Walter Miller. And what he stated was, he stated in his paper, Lower Class Culture as a Generating Milieu of Gang Delinquency, what he stated was that there are certain focal concerns which dominate the life among the lower class, right? What are their focal concerns? Their focal concerns are that they need to be tough, they need to present themselves as very tough people, right? Toughness, street smartness. So these are their focal concerns, right? They need to present themselves as very tough people, very street smart people, as people who come out of trouble very easily, and they need to project themselves as fearless also. And these focal concerns govern their day to day living activities, right? So for them, this is a way to acquire prestige in society. So if they are talking loudly, if they are acting very tough, they are getting aggressive, right? Because otherwise, if they don't do so, they are perceived as weak individuals. So they are basically doing the way the focal concerns are accepted uh, sub, in their own setup, you can say. So but this comes into clash with the dominant uh, culture, right? So this is also one of the ways in which you can say there is this kind of a cultural conflict which may lead to deviancy, right? So they may not be able to understand that directly. It's not that we are violating the law. That is the way they are used to behaving. Then also we have another aspect, that is the theory of delinquent subcultures, which is given by Albert Cohen, right? So what he says is that the lower class youths, why they show this kind of a delinquent behavior is because they protest against the norms and values of the middle class people in the United States. And why they do so? Because the social conditions which are prevalent there, they stop them from attaining uh, the success which which they are supposed to by legitimate means, right? And so this is because of this reason there is a status frustration in these youths, right? And because they are assessed by the middle class standards, the middle class measuring rods, the values, the way of life uh, which is expected from middle class children, it is with the same standards that they are also evaluated. Now these children who are coming from poor backgrounds, from low socioeconomic strata, they lack the skills to impress their teachers, other authorities, and to get good grades because parents are not able to guide them at home properly. So they lack those kind of skills. So even when they have low grades, that is something which is looked into at every stage, even when they will be getting the job, the school performance, and their behavior, everything will be looked into. So even if they want to improve, right? So the opportunities to do so are uh, denied to them, right? So they may show different kinds of deviations, and Albert Cohen has stated that those kind of you can say adaptations or deviations can be seen, that in the sense that he has given four categories, that the child may become a college boy, a delinquent boy, right, or may become you can say a corner boy, right? So these are the different reactions which can be shown by the young person, right? So when a person becomes a delinquent boy, so in those cases, the person will be living for the day, right? Will not be adhering to the middle class values of delaying gratification, right? The person will be adopting those kind of values which will be directly opposite to the middle class culture, basically, right? And this kind of a person will be striving for autonomy, will not be obedient to what the teachers are saying, what the parents are saying. So the deviant conduct is shown by this kind of a person, right? Whereas another kind of a reaction which will be there is that of a college boy. Here the cultural and social values of the middle class, they are accepted by the person. So accepts the goals, may not be in a position to reach the top, but whatever level a person is able to achieve is quite happy to be at that particular place, right? And these are different, you can say, ways in which it has been shown that how the cultural values and norms, and how the institutions support, and the kind of institutional mechanisms which are available, right? How they influence the attainment of the cultural goals by an individual, right? So when we talk of cultural deviance theories, they talk uh, about the aspects when, even when a person is following one's own you can say subculture, right, but still ends up coming into clash with or violating the dominant you can say culture or the laws, because criminal laws reflect the dominant culture, right? So there are different aspects of cultural deviance theories. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. So any questions, if there are?
Yes, ma'am. We have two questions. First is, how does the concept of anomie relate to societal norms and values, ma'am?
Okay, fine. And what is the second question? So I'll
The
answer
second,
these one by one.
yes. Second question is, how have these theory evolved over time, and what are their implications for contemporary criminal justice system?
Okay, fine. So now, when we talk about the theory of anomie, basically, now, as I explained, that this theory, this concept, it was evolved by Emile Durkheim, right? And when he talked about it, he talked about in the sense that human desires, they are insatiable, and it is the public opinion, the laws which regulate these desires. And when he talked about these insatiable desires, he compared human beings with animals. He says, when he says insatiable, he said animals, when they have their food, they are satisfied, They go find a warm place, comfortable place, and they go to sleep. They do not have this intention of storing the food so that others can't have it. They are satisfied. But human beings, he stated, what they do is the more they have, the more they desire. And what the society does by having law in place, the societal standards in place, it regulates those desires, right? And he says, but then when there are sudden changes, the institutions in society like family, right, school, or you can say neighborhood, communities, or law in particular, in case of rapid social change, these norms, these values, these laws, they weaken because the older ones weaken and new ones are not able to take place of the older ones. So it is this state, this unhealthy state, that the anomie results. And he was of the view that crime is something which is normal in every society. It is even a sign of healthy society, right? And he was even of the view, when he explained of this transition, he says from mechanical to organic society, and he was of the view that change is the law of the nature. Change should happen, right? And no society is perfectly organic or mechanical. They have the features of both, right? And he was of the view that change should happen, because it is only when new ideas will come that the progress will be there. And he gave, and when we look at it, we can see that famous people, like even when we talk of you can say Mahatma Gandhi, or when we look at religious leader, be it Gautam Buddha, Muhammad, all of them were persecuted for their ideas. They thought ahead of times, right? So change is something which is for growth also. So anomie, because when anomie is there, when the society is in that particular transitions change, rapid changes when they are happening, so it is at that time that anomie results, when norms are not able to regulate the things. And this is the concept which was even taken up by Robert Merton to explain the existence of crime in US. And he also relied on this concept of anomie, but he looked at it in a different way. In a different way, in the sense that Durkheim said desires are from within the individual, right? During the times of anomie, they are not regulated. But Wharton stated it is the society which gives the goals. So desires can be unlimited, but it is only when the means to achieve those desires, realize those desires, they are not legitimate, that anomie results. And why it results? Because there is a strain which a person feels, that goal is there, but means to achieve that are not available. So the frustration is also there, and this is faced more by the people who are at the lower socio-economic strata. Now, these theories, these basic, the foundations being laid by Durkheim and then by Merton, this led to the growth of anomie theories, modern anomie theories, institutional anomie theories, and other modern explanations of anomie. Right? So they were there. So, and when we look at the contribution of these theories, because the contribution has been that improvements, efforts were made to improve the conditions, the living conditions of people who were living in these areas. Like youth, they should be given good education, they should be given skill training, they should be allowed to access recreation, right, where they can be involved in a you can say positive things, right? So that the strain which they feel, because once they will have good education, good skill training, they will be able to achieve the goals by legitimate means. So those are mainly generally the policy implications. So the poverty eradication programs, right, so that people are able to realize the goals, so they are also there. So we in India also have so many government programs where you can say poor children, they are given scholarships, they are given free education, right? So all that is also there. So we now have right to education, right? The child below 14 years of age has a fundamental right to get educated. So different policy measures to, you can say, equip the youngsters, the youth, so that their involvement in gang, in delinquent activities, they can be reduced. And the question for you to ponder upon is how far the explanations of Anomie given by Merton, he gave it vis-a-vis the American culture, but how far they are true when we look at the Indian context, right? Can we also say that wealth is something which is now becoming, or aspiring for wealth, which is becoming a predominant goal to aspire for, even in Indian society? Because there, when we look at American perspective, so for them, the American dream, the whole culture, the whole socialization of an individual happens that yes, it is possible to achieve success. For example, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who rose from humble background to even become a governor and a very famous actor. So it gives this kind of a hope that anything is achievable if a person works very hard. So, is it that in India also this kind of you can say goal, in US, this goal of acquisition of wealth, it is overwhelming even the institutional setup. How other institutions also are to cater to this goal. For example, education. So the education is also becoming oriented in a way that it should lead a person to acquire wealth, right? Or even politics. So individuals start running for elections and they promise to run the country like a business enterprise. So wealth becomes a goal which is to be achieved, and all the institutions, they have to cooperate in realization of this particular goal. So what about the other aspect, education as an end in itself, for learning, just for the sake of learning, right? Or can't an individual have other goals, right, which can also be equally valued in society? Because overemphasis on material goals and wealth will lead to adopting means, whether legitimate or illegitimate, and when legitimate are not available, then illegitimate means to acquire the wealth, right? So that is something which will lead to anomie also in society. So I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Uh, I convey my deep regard for your informative and knowledgeable lecture. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.